We do have quorum at 4 members, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. I know other folks might be jumping in, but given the time constraints, I want to make sure we can get to everything tonight. So good evening and welcome to the Town of Halifax Finance Committee meeting. Tonight is Monday, February 8th, 2021. On tonight's agenda, acceptance of minutes, budgets, 6:15. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong. We had an amended agenda that was posted. I think the one that I just saw was the old one, so I'm going to read the posting for 2/8. My apologies. Tonight, acceptance of minutes, reorganization of the committee members, budgets, 6:15 water department budgets, 6:30 police budgets, discussion of talent bank submittal and possible interview, reserve fund transfers, correspondence, public participation, calendar, and as may arise. Again, my apologies for that. So first up, we have the acceptance of minutes. So these are the meeting minutes from Monday, February 1st, 2021. Members present were Cheryl Zarella Burke, Fred McGovern, Melinda Tarsi, Tom Connolly, and Drew McClincy. So I would entertain a motion for the Finance Committee to recommend the acceptance of the meeting minutes from Monday, February 1st, 2021 as written.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as written.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor, I will roll call. Tom?
Tom, you're muted.
Aye. So Tom indicated aye. Cheryl?
Aye.
Fred?
Aye.
And myself, Melinda, aye. Thank you so much, Linda, for doing those for us. We appreciate it. Next up is reorganization of the committee members. So as you folks know, after the 15th, we will need to reorganize the committee. So I know Fred brought up that we should probably do this tonight. We will need to fill 3 positions. The chair of the committee, the vice chair of the committee, and the clerk of the committee. So right now, we don't have anyone in the vice chair position. That position was vacated by Bill McAvoy, who had to resign. I myself as chair will be resigning a week from today. And right now we do have a clerk. We have Fred McGovern in the position of clerk. So let's start off, I guess, with nominations for chair. You can self-nominate or you can nominate other members of the committee. And then we will entertain a motion. Second, make sure that person accepts the nomination. We can talk a little bit if there's any questions or comments and hold a vote. So let's start with chair. Does anyone want to make a nomination?
Well, I've been here the longest, so I guess I'll nominate myself.
I'll second that.
Yeah. All right. So we have a nomination for Fred. We have a second. Does anyone have any discussion or questions? I personally think you'll do awesome, Fred.
I think so too.
Not just saying that because you volunteered. I'm saying because I truly believe it. All right. Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor of Fred McGovern as Finance Committee Chair, please signify by saying aye. I will roll call us out. Tom?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
Fred?
Aye.
And myself, Melinda, aye. Congratulations, Fred. Next up is the Vice Chair position.
Can I ask what that does?
Sure. So most of the time, the vice chair is in support of the chair position. The most kind of active or the most
we have like nobody on the finance committee
that we've seen is when the chair cannot be present or the chair has to recuse themselves from the discussion, the vice chair steps in and runs the meeting. That was sort of the most visible responsibility that Bill had or that the vice chair has. So that's really, I like Linda or Charlie if I'm missing anything, but that was the item that came most to mind.
Yeah, so pretty much it was like when you were out, Bill ran the meeting.
Yeah. Yep. Or if the chair recuses himself, like if I were getting reimbursed from going to a training, I would recuse myself and Bill would run the meeting and hold the vote.
For that particular section, yep.
Yeah. So with that in mind, would anyone like to nominate themselves or someone else for the position of vice chairperson of the Finance Committee?
I think it makes sense to nominate Cheryl as the next most senior person on this call.
Mm-hmm. I would second that because genuinely, Cheryl, I think you and Fred, you've worked together for a while now on the finance committee. Great teamwork, and also just in general, it is kind of that position where you won't really have to step up and run the meeting unless Fred can't for whatever reason. So would you accept the nomination?
I'll accept.
Awesome. Do we have any comments or discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of Cheryl Zarella Burke being the vice chairperson of the finance committee, please signify by saying aye. I will roll call you. Tom?
No,
Cheryl?
Aye.
Fred?
Aye.
And myself, Melinda, aye. Congratulations, Cheryl. You're going to do great.
Thank you.
And that leaves us with the position of clerk. The clerk's responsibility is to sign off on the meeting minutes. Linda does an amazing job with those. If Linda were to not be there, or the person who occupies the secretary position were not be there that night, the clerk would be responsible for generating meeting minutes. But that, I think, has happened once in the 3 years I've been on the committee. So it's a very rare occurrence. Mostly the clerk is signing off on meeting minutes. So with that in mind, would anyone like to nominate themselves or someone else for the position of clerk?
I nominate Tom for the position of clerk.
turnabout's fair play.
Tom, do you accept?
Yes.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Awesome. Tom, I genuinely think you will do great. I'm not just saying that. Any further comments or discussion? All right. Hearing none, all those in favor, I will roll call. Tom?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
Fred?
Aye.
And myself, Melinda, aye. Congratulations, Tom, and congratulations to the new e-board of the Finance Committee. You're going to be wonderful, and the town is really, really lucky to have you. So I appreciate all your service.
Thank you.
Great. So next up, we have budgets. We are a little bit ahead for the water department. So why don't we take a minute? I know Sandy can't be here tonight, but Charlie, do you have any general budget announcements that you have for us before we get into water?
There's been no news. Because I'm thinking maybe emergency dispatch. I don't think by Monday night I got an update that we don't now expect our assessment to go up for fiscal 22. We expected it to go up about $50,000, and it will be stay the same. Basically, it's $150,000 for the assessment, plus we put in a little money for equipment and repairs to equipment over at the police station. So at least one point of good news. And I don't know if I've mentioned to you the health insurance. We are expecting it's still an increase, but it's more on the order of 2.5 rather than 5 or 7. Good. So on the expense side, we're seeing some good news in a couple of major categories. That's it.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, Charlie. I know we're a little bit ahead, so I guess we can handle a couple quick housekeeping things too, just in case if anyone was going, any other members of the public or anyone wants to appear at 6:15. I don't want to get us started too early in case folks are logging in specifically for that. So with the community will agree, we can take care of, let's see what's up next.
Reserve fund.
Yeah, reserve fund transfers. Linda, are there any reserve fund transfers?
There were not.
Awesome, thank you. Correspondence.
I believe the only correspondence we had was from Mr. Vetrano, who will be joining us later. And then we did get the one other talent bank form passed along today for Deborah Pasquale. So if you want me to, I can see if she's available on the 22nd.
I think that sounds good. The members of the committee that will be present, does that sound okay to you?
That's fine.
Yes.
Awesome. Great, thank you. That's great. Calendar. Right now, the committee's booked through February. I will leave that up to the members that are going to be staying on if you want to book out your March meeting dates, or you could wait to the 22nd and do that then.
Mm-hmm.
Fred, do you have a preference?
I mean, I just assume get on the book. So, but I mean, because we typically just meet on Mondays anyway, so it's going to be weekly at
Just keep
least.
it going.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
like every Monday
Yep.
through March. I
Okay.
expect we'll probably have to start doubling up as we get
Close.
close.
Close to town meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But for now, we'll just stick with the Monday meetings.
Okay.
We meeting, I know I should know this, and just, are we meeting next week?
No,
No,
No.
Okay.
Next week, we won't meet for the holiday, but that should leave every Monday night through March. So
Yep.
1, 8, 15, 22, 29.
29.
Yep.
Yeah.
Linda, could I please trouble you to post for those dates? Thank you. Anything under as may arise?
I have nothing.
Okay. Does anyone have a talent that no?
Well, you had
Good
got
job, Neil.
another one in,
Okay.
another talent bank form in just today. I
Yeah.
think that Pam may have distributed it. So my hope is you'll be able to arrange another interview in a couple of weeks. And then we'll, I think, is it the person who's coming in tonight isn't able to see the selectman tomorrow, or we're hoping is to have that interview on the 23rd. And then similarly, maybe we can get this other person in for an interview with the selectman on the 23rd too.
Charlie, you mean Debbie Pasquale or somebody new? Somebody in addition.
I think it was Vitrano.
So Vitrano's
no.
tonight,
Yeah.
Tonight, and then it was Debbie.
and then Debbie.
Pasquale.
Yeah,
There's just those two. Okay. I
that's
was
it. Yeah.
So
thinking, okay.
just to clarify, we're going to just discuss the talent bank form for Mr. Vitrano tonight, and then, or is he able to
No.
join us this evening?
He's scheduled for the interview at 6:45.
Okay. Awesome. Great. So if we can get the next applicant or the next interested person in for the February 22nd, that would be great. And then the members of the committee can meet. So all of you went through this too, but I'm sure it was sort of a blur. So all we normally do when we are meeting the new member or the new potential member is to talk a little bit about what we do, hit some of the major points like being a liaison with departments, not advocating necessarily, but being more of a go-between to help clarify questions about the budget. And then we sort of go over the calendar of what the year looks like, as you all know. Especially those of you who've been through more than one budget cycle, you kind of give them a layout of like what, when the busy times are and when we kind of don't meet as often, what the meeting schedules are like, the times, that sort of thing. And then the person usually has maybe some questions. You might ask them why they're interested in the finance committee. And like I said, I know you all went through this, but it was, if you're like me, it was a bit of a blur when you were on the interviewee end. So I think we can get started maybe talking about the water department budget, or at least everyone in the finance committee take a moment to go ahead and pull up those budgets now. Those are in the OneDrive file that Sandy created for your FY 2022 budget submissions. So we can go ahead and get into those.
I see Kathy O'Neill's on too, so she's the administrative assistant over at the water department. So I'm sure she can help answer some questions if you have them.
Awesome. Yeah, I just want to make sure we don't start talking about it before 6:15.
Right.
Folks are logging in right then for that. So. Right.
Hi, yeah, it's Keith, the water department.
Hey, how are you doing?
Okay, Tim.
Good, thanks. We're just pulling up the budget, so we'll get started right at 6:15. That way, if folks were logging in, like members of the public wanted to log in right at 6:15 to hear about the water department, we won't be starting ahead of time. So just one more minute. We're all pulling up the budget submissions that Sandy put into one place for us to pull.
Okay, very well.
All right, so finance committee members, it should be in FY 22 budget submissions and then under the water folder.
I do not have that.
Linda, are we going right to budget sheets or do we work through the others?
We're going
No.
to, We'll have, we'll ask, so now that it's 6:15, we will get started. I would say pull up copy of water budget sheets FY22, which is in mine is the last file in that
Yeah.
folder. And then we can go, because I think the other ones look more, look like wage and personnel,
Yeah.
given the denotations on them.
I do not have it.
Do you not have it?
Charlie, sorry, I just wanted to make sure. Charlie, did you see that cat message?
Let me look,
Oh, I
sorry.
didn't see one.
That's okay. It popped up. It's more Charlie's end of the world, so I wanted to make sure he saw it.
Yeah, the short answer is yes. It is the downfall or the downside of being a government entity and the open meeting law, and everybody can come in. We had a problem, in fact, on Thursday. So, and if we have a problem again, I will deal with it. But yeah, everybody, you have to allow, if somebody from Mars wants to attend by Zoom, they're eligible to attend. Can't do anything about it.
All right, thank you, folks. So we'll start with water department budgets. If anyone needs a copy of the budget file, just let me know, but it should be in OneDrive, shared files, and then you should see FY22 budget submissions, and at the bottom is water. So I know, I just heard Keith, and I don't know if we have other folks I know here from the water department, so thanks so much for making time to chat with us.
I don't have water, Melinda.
No? Okay, hold on, Cheryl. Let me send this to you. All right, it should be a link in your email, in your town email coming through right now. So we can start off, if anyone from the water department wants to either highlight some issues for us, bring up some questions, anything that you would like to approach the committee about, please feel free, and then we'll have some time for the committee members to ask questions, or you to ask questions of us.
Yeah, hi. Do you want me just to go through the increases that we're going to have?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That would be a great place. Yeah, I think that'd be a great starting point. Thank you.
Yeah. Our equipment maintenance budget has been $9,000 for many, many years. Last year we contributed to the heavy equipment repairs for the town equipment, the backhoe and the front end loader.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd really like to continue to do that if it's necessary. Of course, we have our own 4 trucks we need to maintain, but I'd like to increase that from 9,000 to 15,000 for obvious reasons. As always, if we don't spend it, it stays.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the right thing to do because we do the heavy equipment. I have an increased overtime budget, the administrator of the water department. It's currently 30 hours of overtime per year. I'd like to increase that to 40. We have quite a problem with collecting bills. And it's really a problem right now. And I think she's going to have to spend some extra time on it. So again, it's a 10-hour overtime increase in her budget. I'd like to go up on our water testing, PFAS. I'm sure you've all heard of that. Have applied for a grant to probably have our first round of testing paid for by the state, but we're going to have to do it quarterly on each well. So I'd like to increase that from 15 to 25,000. I don't believe the state's going to continue to pay for it. Do contaminant. They just want to get the grants out there, see where the water systems stand,
Okay.
and make us responsible for the testing. And I honestly, I have another one, well and tower maintenance. Well, tower maintenance, we're at $100,000 a year right now on tower maintenance. I'd like to increase that to 125. We're behind in cleaning 2 wells for reasons that I don't really want to get into right now, but we got behind in things like a lot of people did in the last year. And as always, if we don't spend it, it stays there. And it's like an insurance policy.
You also have meters.
Oh, meters, okay. They increased the meter budget. I haven't done that in quite a long time. We didn't do a lot of meter replacements the last year for obvious reasons. And I believe DEP is going to start to crack down on our the older meters we have in the system. Not that they're generally a water meter just stops working and doesn't record water, but I want to ramp that meter replacement program up a little bit. We have some controversy over people's water bills. The new meters, they're electronic. We can download information out of them if people question their bill. We can download.
Determine leaks.
Yeah, determine leaks if they have a leaky toilet, and anything that we can gather information. Look, you're using water between 2 and 4 a.m. Why? And it's a really good system, and it helps us out, and it helps the customer out also. So I want to upscale the meter replacement program when it allows. I mean, we're doing minimal replacements now for obvious reasons, but I want to ramp that up a little bit in the near future.
Just quick kind of procedural question, and this is largely because this is the first time now that we're doing that wage and personnel law no longer exists. And, you know, as we all know, that the board of selectmen and finance committee are sharing those responsibilities. Charlie, when it comes to an increase in overtime budget, does that have to be dealt with just from a financial perspective, or do we have to discuss and vote on that as a wage and personnel entity and then as a finance committee, or just budget-wise?
So all wage and personnel, just typically, wage and personnel sets grades for positions and makes changes in the bylaws.
Okay.
How many hours a position should have, or whether a position should have overtime, is simply a financial matter. It's not a wage and personnel matter. So just as if somebody came in and asked for an increase for a position from 20 hours a week to 30 hours a week, it's the same as if someone came in and said, well, I've got a full-time person here, but I need another 100 hours of overtime for them this coming fiscal year. That's all. Those are just financial questions. They have nothing to do with wage and personnel. The other note on that is that, okay, sorry. The other note on that is simply that all the positions in the water department, except for Keith's, are now union. Now that may change, but it wouldn't have anything to do with wage and personnel anyhow. We don't, wage and personnel never has anything to do with union positions.
Right. Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Members of the committee, do you have any questions? So first of all, thank you so much, Keith, for going through everything and for the notes that you put on the budget sheet. That's really helpful. Any members of the committee, do you have any questions concerning any of what Keith has just presented on the water budget?
This is Tom. I think there's a note for Charlie. And Keith probably can't see those notes because those are mine, most of them. So I spent a fair amount of time with Keith going through this. And I'm just curious, there's a couple of line items where the increases are reasonable, but entirely out of an abundance of caution. So things like the equipment repair, maintenance, and all of that. So I just want to understand, Charlie or Melinda, does Keith have a backup if this budget isn't approved at town meeting? Does he have a backup on those kinds of things? For example, in reserve fund transfers, where something breaks, we got to get it fixed. We have one well down right now, that kind of thing. Is that the appropriate use? Since I've joined the committee, we haven't actually had a reserve fund transfer, so I don't really having a critical incident, an example to rest there. But so that's my question. Can these things be covered? If they don't get covered here, can we cover them in another way? Because they're emergency type things.
The short answer is you have an article at town meeting that appropriates a certain amount of money for the reserve fund. You know, we've just talked about reserve fund transfers for general fund line items. There's also a reserve fund for the water department that's appropriated every year. So if there's a situation, as you're playing out, that there's an expense that goes beyond what's available in the budget, that there's a process that can be followed, and there's a source of funding to allow the water department to be able to do things on an emergency basis.
I would
Okay,
also,
so Keith has recourse if we get stuck here.
It's very tough to hold a special town meeting for a water department article. I think we've been through that, Charlie.
No. You have in the regular annual. Okay, guys, we're gonna get bombed. Bye.
all right. Okay, great. So it looks like we've got quorum again. Thanks, folks. Thanks for hanging with us. So we were in the middle of, Tom, I believe you were asking about reserve fund transfers for water. The only other thing I would add to Charlie's explanation, which was exactly right, is that usually with reserve funds, we tend to use those for unforeseen events or unforeseen issues. And sort of once you've been made, especially once for example, the water department has signaled to us that something might be a problem, then it's not really an unforeseen issue any longer, right? It's something that, either it's usually we handle it through, capital planning, et cetera. But I think that's also part of the policy and part of the demarcation that we make for reserve fund transfers, so that they truly are just for things that we didn't see coming.
Out of the blue, yeah.
Yeah, and as soon as we start talking about something, then arguably we've seen it coming.
Sure. But I think Charlie clarified that there's a separate emergency fund allocated for the water department for those eventualities that Keith is trying to cover in the budget.
Yes.
I think he's under the impression he needs a special town meeting for that stuff.
No.
Okay.
No more than if the selectmen were looking for a reserve fund transfer for some line item under the selectmen's control. So that if it's the water department looking for a reserve fund transfer from that specially set aside pot of money, then they simply come to the finance committee and make that request. They do not have to go to town meeting.
Okay. If he doesn't come back on, I can clarify that with him.
Well, I know that I'm on by Kathy O'Neill.
There. I'm sorry. There he is. He's on. Keith's on. Okay.
We're together.
All right. Any other questions from the committee for the water department? So Keith, what we've done in past years and what we'll start doing now too is we go through the budget first and take all the level funded or decrease budget requests, and usually sort of preliminarily approve those just to get a sense of where we are fiscally. And then we go through on those lines where there are increases. And since you've provided us information on and justification as to why those are, that's really helpful. And it sounds like Tom and you have had good conversations, and Tom can continue to clarify as we hold those votes. But if there's no other questions from the committee at this time, we'll just sort of leave the door open for future communication if you want to come back in front of the committee, or else we can always have Tom reach out to you as your FinCom liaison with any further questions.
I think we're good. Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks so much, Keith.
Thanks, Keith.
Thanks,
Bye.
Kathy. Take care.
Thanks. Job.
All right. So at 6:30, we're a little bit behind because of everything, but we have a presentation on the police budgets from Chief Shavs. Thanks for joining us tonight, Chief. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. I didn't want to miss all the fun.
FinCom, if you want to go ahead and pull up the police budgets in your shared drive.
One note, does anybody know a Susan? She's sitting in the weighing room. I've asked her to identify herself. Was anybody expecting a Susan to attend?
No, it's not Sue Lawless, is it?
I don't know. I asked her to identify herself. So I
No,
don't know.
she would say who she was.
Okay. just let you know. Thank you.
All right, so we'll open up police budget sheets FY22, the Excel file. If anyone needs it sent to them, just yell. And Chief, if you'd like, just like we had with Keith, if you want to go ahead and highlight things for us in particular that you want us to look at, and then we'll allow the committee a chance to ask you any questions they might have about the budget.
That's fine. So I'll begin with how Keith did with the increases in the line items. The biggest increase, and I had some good conversation with Cheryl, is going to be in the wages, because I am putting in for a additional position, which is the lieutenant's position. So that's where that increase is. Out of the, it's an increase of 144,294. Out of that 144, 109,280 is what is being budgeted for the lieutenant's position if it gets approved at town meeting. That figure is not solid because it's wage and personnel position, and I believe that whoever the person is selected for lieutenant would be signing a contract, I think. Again, still some of the logistics to be ironed out. I think it's a valuable position for the department as we go, move forward and try to modernize our department, trying to move it away from, the old days. So that's one of the biggest increases. And there is an increase in the, you can see most of the increases, and we tried to kind of put it on the budget notes, so I can answer some of the questions there. But again, the overtime is staying the same as last year. There's a slight increase in the holiday, but again, a lot of that stuff is contractual, and the longevity is contractual. Some of the officers are getting their more years on the job. The sick buyback is one of those things where it's budgeted, but if the officers use their sick time, that amount doesn't get spent. I think the first budget cycle that I had, which was the actual 1920, was, as you can see, was like 2637 was the amount. That's kind of an insurance policy, almost like Keith mentioned with the water department. So that's the biggest thing. The other increase would be in the administrative line for the 5,000 in overtime. And the main reason for that right now is we're in for year one, almost year 1.5 of trying to obtain accreditation. We're in the process right now of revamping all our policies, which I'm doing myself and Sergeant Benner. And once we have discussions and the policies get implemented, there's going to have to be a lot of filing, a lot of documenting, gathering of documents that we have to have prepared for when the accreditors come and review us. And there's no way that she can, do that and continue with her duties, her normal duties. I did have some conversation with one of the selectmen that, there might be something, instead of doing this, we could maybe hire somebody part-time or look at somebody on a paid internship to kind of help out. But that's kind of the reason behind that overtime request of $5,000. I think most of the other stuff, excuse me, let me just go through my stuff. The cruiser station maintenance remains the same. ACO budget, that's pretty much level funded. The increase was when she was regraded to a higher grade, so that just shows her new pay grade. There's the other increase was the training budget. again, because of this whole police reform, there's going to be additional training requirements that we're going to have to meet as a department. I'm thinking, knowing how the state works, that it's probably going to be unfunded mandates.
Yeah.
So we have to have some money in there to be able to send these officers for the training. We're already budgeted, for the 40 hours of in-service, which last year we didn't use because COVID. Nobody really went to training, so my budget was very minimal in the training end. But I think as thing opens up now, we're going to have to send these guys to training and obviously, backfill their shifts. We have a recruit starting the academy March 1st. So that's another one of the increases, is that we're going to have the backfill is shifts, because we're going to be shorthanded from June to August, a couple of months anyway, into the new fiscal year, while he's in the academy. He's due to graduate probably sometime in July or August.
Thank you, Chief.
You're
Just to clarify quick, how many, so I know you've talked about the increase in, for example, like some of the technology lines and the overtime because of having to prepare for auditors and things like that for accreditation. Do you perceive that most of those costs will hit in FY22, or do you think, because I know accreditation is a multi-year process, do you foresee that you'll have increases in those lines for FY23 and out, or is this mostly like the prep year to get ready for like the site visit team, that kind of thing?
Can't hear him.
I'm sorry. So I think most of the lay work, most of the heavy work is going to be done in upcoming fiscal. Hopefully by fiscal 23, we should be ready for our assessment, and that's basically just getting everything prepared. The Mass Accreditation Commission, when they come and audit us, there's no cost to it, so I don't foresee those increases again going into the next fiscal year.
Melinda, you're muted.
Thank you. You and the little person at the same time. Does any members of the committee have any questions for the chief concerning the police budget?
If I just recall a couple of meetings back, I think you joined us, and there was a proposal, an article, I think, that covered body cams and other things that you needed for fiscal 22. Am I remembering that right? And where would that be in the budget?
That would be an article for town meeting, so that'd be capital. The capital.
It's capital. Okay.
Capital, yeah.
Got it.
There is a article in there. We're hoping to get grants for that, so it might not even go forward. There's just kind of a place there as a placemat.
Got it. Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions?
Can I ask a question, Melinda, or are you going through the committee first?
No, I think the committee, I mean, if anyone raises their hand or yells at me, we can go back to them, but you're more than welcome to ask a question if you'd like, Jean.
Okay, so the water department and the police, I'm hearing a lot of overtime for the wage and personnel employees. Now, I'm just thinking of my staff that I have. I was under the impression that they could only work up to 40 hours a week, or could I ask for approval for them to work more than 40 hours a week? And what would that do? Is that just within, because I always turn back a lot in my wages, and I'm always assuming that I can't give anybody more than 40 hours a week.
Charlie, do you have, in terms of the?
Once the money is appropriated in the account, if a department head wants an employee to work overtime, it's certainly permissible. I think the problem we're running into here in these discussions is whether we're going to make that a regular thing or an emergency, in the sense of if it's an emergency, then it's an emergency. You're not going to generally have a conversation with the finance committee 9 months ahead of the emergency or 12 months ahead of the emergency. If it's going to be a regular thing, I think that conversation needs to happen as part of the budget approval process, in that, because there are, whether there's an actual need to work overtime, whether in fact it would make more sense to hire additional employees or one additional employee, or for those employees who aren't working more than 40, if you've got several people in a department and one's working 35, one's working 40, you say, fine, I've got more money available than I'm going to spend. I'll increase the number of hours for the person working 35. But I think that's part of the presentation that's going to the finance committee. So as an example, let's say in the selectman's office, I thought Pam McSherry, or the board thought Pam McSherry, who's the selectman's assistant, should be budgeted for 45 hours a week. So 40 hours of regular time, 5 hours of overtime. We would submit a budget on that basis. We probably, we have another person working in the office, Irma Bassel. Part of the question and the back and forth might be, well, Irma's only working 30 hours a week. Why are you spending time and a half for Pam for that selectman's assistant position and not using that money for this other position? And what are the actual needs for overtime? Because basically overtime is due to something that's not, you're either for public works and public safety, it's because many times you're filling shifts that have to be filled. You've got to have a certain number of people out there at a certain time. And so somebody else fills in, they've already worked 40 hours. Okay, great. We understand you're going to have to fill that shift. They're going to work 48 hours. There's going to be 8 hours overtime. In general, for the office environment, that's not the case. Usually what would happen is if there's that much work happening, that overtime is going to be needed on a regular basis, that you bring somebody else in. Like I said, there might be an emergency, and and we've budgeted in some other departments specifically for weird hours. As an example, in the highway department, we may have not a snow day, but we may have snow like we did a couple of days ago. Well, that person needs to come in, the administrative assistant needs to come in and do the dispatching and answer the phones. People calling in, Plymouth Street isn't plowed yet. What's going on here? Somebody's going to answer the phones. So that person's brought in at overtime to deal with that situation. So I think, there's nothing illegal or immoral or anything about that, about working overtime, but you need to look at the alternatives and why we would go to an overtime situation rather than picking one of the other options.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Charlie. I don't mean to rush anybody, but I know we have to have a hard stop at 7 because Charlie has to start a ZBA meeting.
Yep.
So do any members of the committee have any questions for the chief on the police budget? I know Cheryl, thank you for your work as the liaison with the police department. So Chief, just like I said to Keith, we're at the point of just going through all the level funded items first and the decrease items first. And then we'll start sort of filling in the picture with the increases, and either, obviously open line of communication if you want to come back to the committee, or if you want to reach out to Cheryl or Cheryl reaches out to you for clarifying information, then we'll make sure to just be in contact throughout the process.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. We appreciate it.
Have a good night.
You too.
You too.
So last but certainly not least, we had a talent bank form submission from Mr. Joe Vetrano, who I think is with us tonight. And I know we're a little bit late. So hi, welcome. Thanks for hanging in. Do you prefer Joseph, Joe?
Joe's fine.
Okay. So my name is Melinda. I'm the outgoing chair of the finance committee. You'll see my colleagues here. We have Tom, Fred, and Cheryl and Lauren all joining us. Drew is another member who's not here tonight. So really quickly, we saw your talent bank form. We're really excited about your interest in serving Halifax. I'm going to kind of do the speed version of this. So the only major qualifications for finance committee are for the person to be a registered voter and a resident of the town of Halifax. You don't have to have a finance background or anything like that. We're all from different professional educational backgrounds. The one thing that we have in common is that we like to use sort of a reasonable citizen standard to evaluate the budgets for the departments. And that's really it. So if you balance a household budget, you're perfectly qualified. If you do other kind of financial analysis, great, but it's not a requirement.
Okay.
We don't all agree on everything. We have great conversations. We raise interesting questions, and the purpose of the finance committee is to serve as an advisory capacity to the town for all items at town meeting, not just the financial ones. You'll see that we vote on zoning and other things because we truly do act in an advisory capacity. Every member of the finance committee acts as a liaison with one or more departments. So you just heard, for example, we had some questions about maybe the police budget. The liaison, Cheryl, was able to have a conversation with the chief, and now going forward, she can fill us in on those questions we might have about some things.
Mm-hmm.
We're in the midst of the budget process right now. It starts in sort of late December, and it really is sort of at its height from now through town meeting, which normally in a non-pandemic world would happen in May. Summers tend to be pretty light, much fewer meetings, but right now is most of the work of the committee when we're evaluating budgets and trying to put the upcoming fiscal year together. We generally meet Monday nights at 6, but that's all up to the committee. So if a newly constituted committee wanted to choose a different night, then that's totally fine. You just have to give that 48 hours of advance notice for public meeting postings. So like I said, sorry, that was my speed round, but most importantly, do you have any questions for us about what we do or the work?
No, I mean, I think I got a pretty good grasp of obviously what you guys do. I guess for my biggest question would be what my role would be. I mean, I know, like you said, you kind of set up liaisons with different entities and stuff like that. So, obviously I've never been in town, quote unquote government or committees or anything like that. So, I have a purchasing background. I've been doing it for years. So I'm dealing with budgets and math all day long. So I'm just curious as what I would need to do and stuff like that. Obviously I've got a lot of commitments with work as well as, involved in youth sports and stuff like that too, which I have no problem obviously committing to anything, but that's pretty much my question, really.
Yeah, that's a great question. So normally when we sort of onboard new members, we don't assign them liaisonships, or if we do, we assign them, for example, the offices in town hall that have really pretty small expense budgets and things like that. Or like we've done this year is we tried to have folks sort of shadowing other people as a liaison.
Mm-hmm.
Much of that work is kind of wrapping up or coming to a close now. So basically for new members, and I joined in the middle of a budget cycle, you're really just sort of evaluating budgets as they come before you. You'll receive copies of every department budget, just like you saw now. For example, the chief presented something and we said, hey, well, this looks a little bit high. What about this? Or, I see this goes up, this went up here, but I didn't see a note as to why. Could you clarify? Is this going to be recurring? Just the kind of questions you'd ask at work, or the kind of questions you'd ask, of your home budget. That's all you really have to bring to bear in the committee meeting. That's really just like that reasonable person standard of looking at it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Good.
So we won't put pressure on you, but are you still interested in joining the finance committee?
Yeah. And what did you say? It's Monday nights normally, and is it every Monday night for
budget season? Yeah, you might as a committee decide to add some other meetings in, but right now we're only posted for Monday nights, and sort of this time of the year is usually most of the work.
Yeah, that's fine. I think that works. My schedule Monday nights being available by 6 by the time I get home. So yeah, I'm definitely interested.
Awesome. So would you mind if we held a vote tonight on a recommendation of the Board of Selectmen?
Sure. Let's do it. Just jump right in, right?
Yeah. All right. So I would entertain a motion for the Finance Committee to recommend appointing Mr. Joe Vetrano to the next available opening with the longest term of up to 3 years.
I'll make a motion to appoint Joe Vetrano to the Finance Committee for the.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, I will roll call us. Tom?
Aye.
Fred?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
And myself, Melinda, aye.
And
All right, so
Lauren.
the next step.
Lauren.
That
Aye.
I'm sorry, Lauren. I saw
No
your
worries.
video. What a jerk. Sorry.
No worries.
So Joe, the next step will be that this recommendation will go to in front of the Board of Selectmen, who will do the same kind of interview process, and then
Okay.
we'll take a vote as well.
All right.
But I need you to adjourn. I
Okay.
need you to
Yeah.
adjourn, please.
All right. I would entertain a motion for the Finance Committee to adjourn the meeting at 6:59 PM.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded. I'll roll call us out. Tom,
Aye.
Fred,
Aye.
Cheryl,
Aye.
Lauren,
Aye.
and myself, Melinda. Aye. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm going to miss you
Well,
here.
We're gonna miss
Thank
you
you,
too.
Melinda.
Thank you, Melinda.
It's Melinda.
Aye.
Bye.